Okay, Manuel, that was a good last take. I'm just gonna need you to dial it a bit more. Be just a bit more normal person. I know it's a bit out of your wheelhouse, but please just try and be a bit more normal person. You're doing well. Just dial up maybe 10 more percent. Then we're good. You got that?
I guess.
And action.
Well, isn't this a strange series of events? It's almost like we're recording a podcast and acting at the same time. Hey everyone, I am Manuel.
I'm B.
And I'm JD. And you're reading the wrong way. Well, welcome to Reading the Wrong Way. I guess this is technically episode 2. And it was finally my turn to pick a manga. And I picked Tenmaku Cinema. In the basics, Tenmaku Cinema was a supernatural coming-of-age manga about filmmaking by Yuto Tsukuda and illustrated by Shun Saiki. They were the team behind Food War Shokugeki no Soma. It ran in Shonen Jump for 21 chapters between April 10th and September 11th, 2023.
Yeah, it had a rough ending, apparently. It was a great manga. Oh, am I spoiling my ending? Maybe it's not a great manga. But yeah, it was an interesting choice. I think we made the choice, or you made the choice, I should say, because it was circa the award season or whatever at the time, at the end of the last episode.
Oh, yeah, that was my justification. I read this as it was coming out just because it seemed interesting. Like, I picked it up on chance when I was browsing through the Shonen Jump app and said, this seems interesting. I have no idea who these people were until I looked it up later.
Yeah, so Ghost makes movies. I mean, Ghost sort of makes movies.
Ghost, it's the story of Boku no Movie Academia, starring like a ghostwriter, literally. It's Hikaru no Go, it's Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, I would say it's Hikaru no Go to the movies.
Hikaru no Go to the movies. If Slimer had like a really good plot in him and was just always bothering the Ghostbusters to write it, to film it, I mean, just more accurately. Yeah. I'm sure Slimer has the great American movie within him. I know this is obviously the great Japanese movie, but yes. Anyway, I'm going to be honest with you right off the bat before we even start. I have the names in my notes and I'm trying to like pick them all out by eye. I am going to have a lot of trouble with some of these names because only like 3 of them are characters in my opinion.
Yeah, and 2 of the ones who are characters have very similar names also.
Oh, yeah, and then one of them has multiple names. Did you guys really catch on to that? Like they mentioned it at the beginning and then they kind of never mentioned it again. They keep jumping between them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, Manuel.
Okay. So our homeboy Shinichi Hajime, he's the head of the cinema club at his high school, and he's a cinema freak. And like I have it in my very first thing in my notes is okay Snape, because he makes all these points references like that camera thing was weird, minus 1 million points. It's like but the movie was great, plus 5 billion points.
It's clearly just to show that he loves film and the act of like filmmaking. He appreciates everything, even if some things do take away from it. It's something I really liked about him.
This is where I was getting Boku no Movie Academia, because he's basically whatever the My Hero Academia kid's name.
Deku?
Yeah, he's that, but for movies. He's the same character.
It's funny because he keeps all of his ratings and his reviews in a notebook. And at first, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, God, that notebook would be so annoying with the most like pedantic notes and like the most ridiculous point givings and aways and whatever you've ever seen in your life. But later on, they refer to that as if it's like, it's like the Bible or whatever. I'm like, okay.
Man, no, anyway, there are r/I'm 14 and this is deep, or I guess r/I'm 14 and this is cinephilia. Exactly. So yeah, he's watching a movie. It's like some classic samurai movie, I guess. Mm-hmm. Even though it can't be that old, but it's a classic samurai movie. And as he's watching it, a ghost appears and like chooses him, I guess. Is there a better way to phrase what happens there? I went over this. I actually, believe it or not, I read the manga twice. I've read the manga twice, believe it or not. And because actually, I'm going to spoil it right now. I liked it, so I read it twice, and I wanted to get more into it, and I wanted to see, what stuff I missed. And I still feel like I missed why he started haunting him. Because he realized that he's a ghost. He has unfinished business. What do any ghost with unfinished business do? Find some unsuspecting mortal and say, hey, you're going to help me finish this, and then maybe I'll stop haunting you.
Yeah, and our homeboy, that's where we meet. Oh, by the way, even though I
I
only
have a
mentioned
movie that I really wish I got to make while I was alive. Let me choose a middle schooler.
Exactly, that's the best choice. Um, by the way, I only mentioned Shinichi because I forgot the other three guys' names, but he's actually at this movie with his film club friends. They're all like, "You know how to pick a good movie," and I'm like, "But what if his friends is sleeping during the movie?" But yeah, the dude, the ghost, is named Tenmaku.
Takihito.
There you go. And he was a film writer. Apparently, we learn more about this as we go along. But he's a film writer. He was like working on his biggest project, like his magnum opus, so to speak. And he died.
He was 18, by the way.
He was 18. Yes, he was 18.
Working on his magnum opus with Akira Kurosawa.
Ryu Shirakawa.
Yeah, legally distinct Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah.
My first kind of problem with this entire setup, and this is a small problem, my first problem with this entire setup, and kind of my only big one, is that when I saw the art, I assumed that this dude died in like the 60s. You know, he's dressed like a 1920s, a pre-World War II looking like Japanese schoolboy with the hat and everything like that. Then when they showed the director, I'm like, oh, it's Akira Kurosawa. Clearly this is like he came from way, further back. But then we learn that he died in the 90s. And I just could not just wrap my mind around that fact. And the director, who by the time the story takes place had also passed away, and he passed away in the 2000s. I'm not sure when Akira Kurosawa passed away, but I don't think it was in 2006. Watch, it actually is 2006.
I think it was 1994, I want to say, sometime in the 90s or
yeah, it was 19. Okay, I just looked it up real fast right now. It was 1998, and he was well close to 90. So yeah, so like, I guess they didn't have to. I mean, like, I'm over here like, it's Akira Kurosawa, but like, if you were going to go that far and clearly make the character that, you might as well have just gone all in and made the time period correct.
So yes, the ghost realizes he's
been the
been
team who wrote Food Wars. So I mean,
yeah.
So yes, Tenmaku realizes he's been dead for 30 years. The magnum opus he thought Shirakawa was working on at the time hasn't come to fruition in those 30 years. So he, I guess, gets to thinking that clearly Shirakawa must have like stopped the movie after his death because it was just too heartbreaking to make it without him. And has decided that Shinichi is going to be the vessel through which he gets this done one way or another.
Yeah, and that movie is called Fang, which is like the weirdest. Okay, have you guys ever seen Cobra Kai?
No.
Okay, well, there's this part where, like, just real fast, Karate Kid, Cobra Kai, whatever. There's this part where the guy who, the bad guy from the original Karate Kid can't do Cobra Kai anymore, but that's his, like, life thing. And the whole shtick is that he's this guy stuck in the past, and he's like, our new karate team is called Cobra Fang. And the whole time they kept saying Fang in this thing, I just kept thinking of that because it is the most edgelordy sounding title I've ever seen. I know he's 18 in the 90s, but it still sounds like Fang. It has to be really deep. It's about the bite of youth. I don't know.
I mean, we don't really know much about the script.
We learned nothing about Fang, by the way.
Yeah.
No. Spoiler alert, they do not make Fang in this manga. That is not the point of this manga. But I guess let's get to the point of this manga. So
yes, Shinichi goes to school the next day. He's talking with his friends, and he's talking to the ghost that no one can see. So everyone's just wondering what in the world is going on. They kind of just think he's a Chunibyo at that point. Mm-hmm. At some time, they suddenly remember that a movie star goes to their school.
Yeah, I also wrote that too. Oh yeah, I happened to forget a famous actress goes to my school.
Yeah, and for the record, this is unusual in any country. Usually most famous actresses, or famous actors, I should say in general, celebrities go to either like obviously really expensive schools or to celebrity schools, especially in Japan. Those specifically exist, Mm-hmm. So I found that kind of weird that she was just going there creating a ruckus every time she shows up, which apparently is not often.
This is an actress. Her stage name is Himeki Kurakui. She goes to the school, and when Tenmaku sees her, he is instantly like has this muse moment and has like an entire script just like written out, makes Shinichi like possesses his body, makes him go all the way back home, writes out the script for this short film, comes back and presents it to her saying, please be in this movie.
Yeah. It's funny because it almost is just a horror manga for like these couple pages.
Is anyone else tired of manga pretending that teenagers can be good at stuff?
Okay, what confused me about this too is that it's handwritten. By the way, I'm like, I can't imagine how like terrible that script must have looked. And he gives it to her. And what I found funny about this whole sequence of events is that Shinichi had never like it takes him a long time to even read the script because he's still possessed by Tenmaku, so he doesn't know he's giving it to her and anything like that. He just hands it to her as Tenmaku. She takes it home, reads it, and he's all like, "Oh, I need to get that script back. I need to apologize to her. I made this huge thing," and she's like, "I'm gonna be in your movie. I'm gonna be in The Shore."
Mm-hmm. So yes, that's the end of chapter 1. In a very kind of like Bakuman style is the setup for this. Guy makes request that seems much too big of a female classmate he only kind of knows, and she somehow accepts.
By the way, you mentioned her stage acting. Her stage name is Himeki Kurakui. That's the name I think we refer to her as only there. I call her Himeki all the time. But her real name is Hinaki Kurai. And every so often, I mentioned this before we started, but every so often, the manga goes back and forth and uses that name, especially when they're talking about her in school. And I'm like, oh my God, she has 2 names. Like, why? There's like some of these names are just hard for me to follow. And I'm like, why does she have 2? And they never really like choose one. But yeah, anyways, if I accidentally say Kurai during this, I just want you to refer to Himeki is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and speaking of which, the main character of the story, The Shore, which we do not learn the plot about until way at the end. Well, the full plot, I should say more accurately. The main character is named Nagisa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of where we pick up as chapter 2 starts. We're not doing this as much as our where we go chapter by chapter, but we learn like her kind of method. It's not full on Stanislavski kind of method, but she does have what she calls conversations with her characters and gets into like the really weird questions, like what kind of animals does Nagisa like? What does she hate? What kind of character or colors does she love?
It is insane, by the way. We also find out like pretty soon after this that they're doing all this for a short film.
Yeah, a short film that, like, first of all, I know we don't want to dig into the details too much here. My favorite line, I wish they would have kept referencing it, was that she was developing the whole character of Nagisa, and she was like, what animal she doesn't like. She keeps talking about she's indifferent to macaques, the monkey. and she referenced it like 2 or 3 times later on in the chapter. I'm like, please keep mentioning this. I find that funny, but she never brings it up again. I was hoping that would make it into the movie somehow. She's talking about like the Shore's this deep story. About we'll get there, but the Shore's this deep story, and then she's randomly like, but those macaques, I don't feel anything about them. Yeah, I don't know.
Actually, the description of the Shore that we're given in the second chapter is Nagisa lives in a seaside town. It depicts her everyday life and a small incident, but it's unbelievably moving. The vividness of the environment, the delicate character depictions, every line is so skillfully refined. We learned from like this and their conversations that Himeki is also kind of a big cinephile. They discuss like the framing and shooting references for the film, specifically referencing The Shawshank Redemption and Linda.
B, do you remember Linda? Sorry, I can't say that.
Nope.
It's funny you don't remember that because not to get too like off topic here, but I've referenced Linda with B several times because we do like we do panels together and slightly off topic once again, but we do like a lot of music ones, like about punk music, that kind of genre. And that movie is based off of a song called Linda, and they call the movie Linda. And I'm like, oh, this band did that song that movie's based on. And B's like, I don't know either of those things. And when I saw that reference in the manga, I'm like, B better not be like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, I have literally brought that up to you several times.
No, I never will. I'm never gonna watch it.
I think it's an auto movie, by the way, isn't it? I think Linda has a famous director too. It's like I want to say Hideki Anno, actually.
It's not.
Oh, it's not. Who directed? Well, hold on. We have to find this out now. Oh, it's Nobuhiro Yamashita. I don't know who that is at all. I mean, I clicked on him.
Like hold on.
He looks like he directed The Shore. If you click on his picture, everyone look up Nobuhiro Yamashita. That's what Shinichiro grew up to be.
Okay. So that was basically chapter 2. Moving into chapter 3, The Shore and the Movie Research Club. So they've now basically fully committed to making this movie. The rest of the film club is now wrangled in with them as well. But they have no money, and they have a 15 to 20 minute movie to make. So we're going to get good luck with that. They discuss methods for making films on the cheap. They specifically reference Don't Stop the Camera, which is the Japanese title for One Cut of the Dead. It's a really good horror movie. Check it out, which only costs about $30,000. I also think of El Mariachi when they were talking about making movies for cheap, and that only cost about, I think, $7,000, but that was in like 1980s, 1970s money. So it's probably a bit more today.
Yeah, one of my homies did a movie that I've referenced a lot in general. Shout out to Zach from Sophie and the Serial Killers. Great little musical. You can watch it free on Tubi. That was shot entirely on an iPhone, or I should say more accurately, a series of iPhones. So I guess I'd heard about this before. I'm not going to lie, until I saw that movie, I was like, you can't shoot a movie on an iPhone. The boomer in me wants to think that, but that's actually how this movie, The Shore, wants to be made, or is made, I should say.
Mm-hmm. We also learned that Himeki hasn't told her manager or her agency that she's doing this movie over summer vacation, and her schedule is currently packed, so she's going to have to find every spare minute she can and hope no one ever asks what she's doing with that time.
I know.
That's like the source of all the conflict in the whole manga, and I think it's kind of dumb.
Yeah, I'll be real with you. Like, it comes to a head, I feel, far too late. Like, I think that if they were going to make it a big issue, they should have brought in, because she has a stage mom that they kind of reference every so often, and that becomes really important. But they reference it pretty much right from starting here ish, that she has a very, her I don't know if she's her actual manager, but I think she is, because that's the management company. She only has her. So yeah, her mom is her manager, a very stage mom, and I wish I felt they should have included her earlier, and that would have made a world of difference as far as conflict.
Like the end, huh?
Yeah, she doesn't until like 3 chapters before the end. That's annoying. Also, there's a part where they show her driver, and I'm like, oh, how funny, they show her driver, and then he actually becomes a character at the end for some reason too. Just spoiler alert, if you're reading the manga for the first time, remember the driver, he comes back.
So yes, this chapter then has a brief flashback of Tenmaku's past. He claims to have written a few of Shirakawa's films, but no, there's no film with his name credited to it. I believe The Fang was supposed to be the first one credited to him, but he died, and obviously that stopped production. His memory of his life and especially his death is patchy.
He has ghost amnesia.
Yeah, ghost amnesia. At the end of the chapter, we see a photo of him with Shirakawa with what appears to be Tenmaku in the background, but his hair is black instead of the ghost Tenmaku's white.
In case you're curious, because this really let me down, I'm just going to tell you right now, we never learn how he died. I just want to say this now. Like, I kept thinking about it. I'm like, oh shit, because they kind of almost hint that something dark might have happened. I thought maybe a jealous screenwriter murdered him or something, like, because he mentions that he was in the screenwriter's room and he would throw his ideas out there but would never let his name be on there. I'm like, maybe one of those got jealous and like stabbed him to death or something.
Oh, so it just turns into the player. Okay.
Yeah, but that never comes up. To be fair, like, it wasn't that strong of a hint that I felt that it was going to be dark, but like, come on, 18-year-old dies. Like, how's he going to die? Yeah, how was he going to die otherwise? Like, a car hit him, but he got murdered. I don't know.
Truck-kun got this one too.
Yeah, he got isekai. He got isekai 30 years later.
There's a lot that never gets fleshed out much, partly due to them, I believe, planning for this to be a much longer running manga until it got canceled.
Yeah.
Which means they had to do a lot of the development within the last few chapters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they implied the director's kind of his father figure, too.
Well, he talks later, I think, about how his father was never in the picture. I can't remember if he says he's dead or just left. And then his mother lost her life, I think, right after he was born or in the process of giving birth to him. But we'll talk more about how...
Oh, we'll get to that later, I guess, about Tenmaku being an orphan, I guess, later on.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to say that, we'll get to the nature of how Jump magazine, or at least how I understand it from reading Bakuman, kind of works and how this got canceled so quickly and had to rush out its ending. But moving on to our next chapter, scene 4, Hajime and Tenmaku on the town. This one deals with storyboards and location scouting. This whole thing is the entire process of them making the Shore from pre-production to post-production and presentation. So this is where we're trying to get.
I will say, if you haven't guessed, I'm mostly sort of negative on the manga overall. I do think the craft stuff is pretty fun. I think the process of them making the movie is pretty fun to read. And
there should have been more of it.
Location scouting stuff. Yeah, there should have been.
You should have bought Weekly Shonen Jump and voted for it, Manuel.
Okay. Now's a good time Now's a good time to get into this now. This should never have been in Shonen Jump. I know it has to do with them being Food Wars people and all that stuff, and probably contractual, obviously, but there are actual, and you could go online and read about this too. Most of the fans who loved it and this should never have been Shonen Jump. There are magazines dedicated to these kind of topics, these kind of, what are they called? Hobby things? I think they're called hobby magazines, but where the manga's meant to be very technical. Where you'll get a manga about like, oh, I'm doing manga, and it'll be all about the process, and there'll be a plot, wrapping around it, but it's a lot of like, in the weed stuff that mainly only people into it would like. This belongs in that kind of a magazine. This should never have been in Shonen Jump.
Well, except for sometimes when they do get into the weeds, they're actually wrong. But we can get into that when it comes up.
The location stuff was fine. Like there's the part where they go to where he's like, "Oh, I want it to be at Hachiko, the dog statue in Shibuya Station," and they go there and it's crowded with people. And if you ever been there, that's the case. Like you'll get a picture there because it's Japan, so they're being polite, but there's always a line to it, and you'll always get those foreigners who will never respect it. And even if you pull back, there's just like crowds and crowds and crowds of people there. Like I've met people there before, like as in like, oh, I'll meet you outside of Shibuya Station, and then I say that, but then I get there, I'm like, oh, this is the worst place to have said that. It's like they're gonna just wander around till they find. Well, thank God it's me. I'm tall. If you never met me in real life, so it's like look for the guy who's like slightly above everyone else and like big too. So I'm just big in all ways. But yeah. But anyway,
we also see part of the kind of serendipitous nature of creation when Hajime gets inspired to set a scene in the rain, and Tenmaku just has another blast of inspiration to fix what would have been a continuity error had they set it where he had been planning to put it with the next scene. We also get another flashback to Tenmaku's time with the director. Shirakawa calls him Talkie, which I thought was like Talkie, like a movie with sound from the 1920s. Oh. You remember that, Manuel? You were there.
Oh, shut up! I thought you were saying like Taki, like Taki's the chip. But
no. Back in the present, we get more location scouting, but none of the audiovisual club members can make it. It looks like he and Tenmaku are going alone to the beach, but at the end of the chapter, we see that Himeki is now with them. Also, Ghost can apparently get motion sickness, as we see on the train.
Oh, is this a chapter where he brings the umbrella out of nowhere?
Oh my god, I literally, my entire notes for chapter 5 are about the umbrella.
He brought the umbrella out of, see, exactly, that popped in my mind when he pulls the umbrella out. In the chapter, they focus on the fact, where did you get that? He's like, I guess I can summon it. But my thought was, how is he grabbing it? Like, can they see the umbrella? Did they just see the umbrella plant itself and then he just goes under it?
My notes about the umbrella follow a completely different train of thought, which is that I'm so sick of shonen manga. Because I'm just tired of anytime something happens, everyone in a manga having to look with their like eyes like them and make the drop on their face and be like, that's so weird. Why did that happen? And I'm like, God, if this was like a manga written for adults, it would have just happened and been a cool little weird thing for the audience and we would have moved on. But they have to point out every time something is a little bit different. And I'm like, man, I hate shonen manga.
This chapter annoyed me the most because this is one of the chapters where Himeki is trying to get in touch with Nagisa, and she's like they're at the beach and she's getting in the water. She's trying to like she's frolicking in there, and like she thinks she's filming stuff that he's filming stuff the whole time, like he might use for B-roll, but he's filming this stuff too, and he's all like she's getting into the character, and this is when it really starts to dawn on me. I have no idea what the fuck this movie's about. Like this is the pivotal scene, but they're not telling me what the pivotal scene is, and then.
At this point, I think it's less about the movie that they're making and just the movie making process in general. Yeah. As we're, the next chapter goes into more scouting, but this is for the beach locations. Since it's the shore, it's obviously going to be along some body of water, and that in this case is the ocean.
This is the first beach episode of 2, I think.
Of 2, yeah. It was kind of funny.
A very like multi-part beach episode, but yes.
It was kind of funny when she was all like, I'm going to go get fireworks because that'll get me a touch of Nagisa. And then she runs off and there's no sign. She runs right to the sign.
The fireworks, like, no fireworks. Sign gag is hilarious. I love it.
It's pretty funny. She's like,
They discuss more of their method that they'll be using to save costs when making the movie. They talk about shooting the movie on a smartphone, as Manuel already discussed. They reference a 2015 movie, which, judging by that, I think they're referencing Tangerine by Sean Baker, which was shot on 3 iPhone 5Ss.
What?
Yeah. And,
no, for the record, that movie I mentioned earlier, Sophie Serial Killers, that was filmed way later on nicer iPhones. I own an iPhone 5S. That was not a good phone.
Yeah. And then Sean Baker is also the director of this year, 2024 film, Anora. It's out now and also generating lots of Oscar buzz. So I guess shoot on iPhones, you'll eventually get Oscar buzz.
I guess. I will give them this. They did bring up some good points about shooting on iPhones. I don't think they mentioned it all here, but I guess we'll just mention it all here about how the phones always overcorrect for the contrast and how like they're really weird in terms of focus and stuff like that. And all that's really that's what I get the most. 'Cause, like those aren't really meant to film cinematic stuff. It's meant to like just make fun little memory photos. But it does have cool things. Like he mentions the cinema mode that like automatically or attempts to automatically blur out the background. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that would work if I was filming. Like most cameras, you'd have to do that in post. So yeah.
Yeah, and despite my previous comment, it's possible to film good looking stuff on a phone. It's down to framing and lighting and set design and all that. With things I just don't think a middle schooler can do.
Also,
But,
before they leave the beach, I have to mention this. When she ran off, she didn't get the fireworks, but she ran off, and she comes back, and she's like wearing a bikini, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna get the bikini scene, and he's all like, basically nosebleed, not really nosebleed, but and she's like, I just bought this over there. Like, who just buys a bikini and changes into it like that? But like, where's her clothes? But she come back carrying a bag, and then she gets in the water, and she's like, she has that scene. And part of me, I keep thinking, I'm like, why didn't they use this in the movie? Because when they film that scene later on, she's not wearing a bikini.
I'd say, yes, he's talking about the opening scene of the shore, which, as we'll see described later, is Nagisa Himeki's character laying in the water, just kind of like paddling aimlessly with a single tear rolling down her cheek.
That's such a film school looking scene, might I add. That's such a Rosebud type scene. Like, you think that's
film
deep.
school script.
Yeah, I agree, but it's like that just feels like so like. I guess some people will find that touching, but I would just find that so overdone. Like, this is your first movie, isn't it? I would just know that immediately.
Yes, Manuel, it is.
But it's not Tenmaku's first movie, and that's important.
One other thing about this chapter, I kind of love the cross page spread that's used for showing the beach when they decide to shoot like the final scene of the movie there. Those two against the background of the beach and the ocean seems to stretch as far as the eye can see. It was just something, I guess, kind of a really cinematic touch to this like little panel.
Oh, that is. I'm looking at it right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are some good touches here and there.
I actually like her disguise here because they reference it every so often, but I'm always like, I'm surprised no one ever recognizes her because she's not really all that disguised.
She might also not be
she's not as famous as she thinks she is.
Not as famous as she is, yeah.
Well, I mean, or as everyone at school thinks she is. Like, having someone who's been in like movies probably just makes her seem super famous to those around her, but she's not like an A-list level. She's probably maybe B or C list.
It would have been like cute if they had played with that. And I feel like in a way, I mean, we do get, I think, the sense when we do meet the director that she's working with that he's not like an A-list director either. Mm-hmm. But they could have leaned into it a little more.
The next chapter has them filming that thing at school, like I guess like the first actual production day.
Mm-hmm. And is this the chapter where they have to film around the crowd by the end?
Yes.
Yeah. Because they film in the morning, they go to the school before it opens, but like actually before it all starts, they give you a bit of story. Because I don't think we mentioned this earlier. I think they did mention at the beginning, but we just didn't mention it. That the reason why Shinichi's so into movies is because he was sick. Like, he was a sickly boy growing up, and he would just like watch movies, like as a kid or whatever. And I think he met one of the friends like that. Like when he started going to school again, the friends are like, "Oh, I'll be your friend," and yeah.
I think he's. We see this in a flashback later that he's like drawing something from one of the movies, and it's a scene, I believe, from the Never-Ending Story Manual.
Yes. It is for the Never-Ending Story.
Chapter 7 is the start of filming. Everyone kind of goes over the roles they'll have.
This is where we finally get everybody's name and their single personality trait. So I have them all written down.
Yeah, so we have Chinosuke. He's in a band, so he's handling music.
Yeah, his personality is band. Ryoji, his personality is that he builds plastic models. He's going to be the grip.
Tenmaku specifically compares him to the main character of Kochikame, one of the longest running manga ever. So it was old when he was still around when he was alive.
And then my favorite one though is Aoi Shino. He's the one that his older sisters are like, are they going to like fashion school? I forget exactly. I don't have it in my notes.
Fashion and cosmetology school, I think.
He basically steals their clothes and makeup. And he's in
his
charge,
personality is that he has sisters.
Yeah, he has sisters.
As I was noting this, I liked this. I guess I'm going to call it Shinichi method just because it's they call themselves Team Shinichi. I said this is opposed to the manual method where he has to be coaxed into showing up to recording and then makes everyone else do the rest.
Yeah. Actually, it's from this point on that I was confused because I actually thought Shinichi was going to appear in the movie, and it's somewhere around here where he mentions that he can, or his brain will explode, or whatever the heck. And the main character, I'm sorry, like the characters are all played by the rest of Team Shinichi, and the main character is played by the bad guy.
Oh, the main male character.
Yeah.
Shimada is the main male character's name.
But yeah, so they're filming the thing at the school, and Himeki shows up in like her full Himeki, like, you know, I guess I should say Nagisa mode. She has her hair down. I hate her like cowlick. It's like, or I don't even know what they are. It's like her bangs. One goes up, one goes down, and they curl around, making like a figure 8. I hate it. I would stop the whole production and cut that off.
Man, we've got to keep continuity at this point.
I know, exactly.
Okay, there's a bit more discussion of like setting in films. They talk about how, thanks to movie magic, they can have a completely unrelated exterior and interior, specifically mentioning the Promised Neverland movie for that jump synergy.
I have to talk about this here because B mentioned it earlier about some things that, you know, are wrong. I already talked to B about this when we were just going over our own notes. We were still reading it. This pissed me off, this chapter, because they specifically mention how they're going to all film. Anyone who has a free hand is going to film with their phones for other shots. And anyone who has ever filmed anything knows that it's really one of the nightmare scenarios is trying to make footage match when it's not from the same source. You know, whatever you can have 2 cameras that are the same manufacturer, same brand. Like maybe you got a later production run that changed, like, you know, something in it, and like the depth will be wrong, the color correction will be wrong. And if you have, unless they all have the exact same iPhone, you know, brand, and they all have the exact same setting set up, and I guess they could, but some of those phones look different. There's no way any of that footage matches.
What they're talking about is not impossible. But again, we are reminded every other page that they're 14.
Yeah. These are kids just trying to make a movie with what they have on hand, Manuel. I'm sorry they didn't have a Super 8 or just, I guess, stones and chisels like they did when you were a kid.
I do think, actually, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I do think the way that they talk about the craft of it and how seriously they take it, combined with the way that the professional director actually responds to the movie at the end, is like a really funny contrast. But I don't know how intentional that was.
No, like, I think starting in the next chapter or so, they start editing it together. I would have loved if they had a scene where they're like, none of our footage matches. I would have just loved that. And they're like, oh, I guess we can't use those other 2 cameras. And for the record, I want to point out, they never really do that again. They say they're doing that, and presumably they are doing that off screen. The other characters are holding up their phones. But we don't really see that any other time but this one scene.
I mean, yeah, we see them checking someone's footage on a tablet. I don't know who shot it, but we see them at least like, oh yeah, we're looking at our footage as soon as we take it.
Did you think that was a good shot, by the way? She had the most toothiest, cheesiest, like Cheshire, you know, cat smile. Looks so awkward. I'm like, that's a retake, dude. Like, that's a retake.
Actually, and once again, we get the serendipitous nature of film as Hajime says, I need one more shot. I need a tracking shot of her coming into school as the crowd of people is coming in. We got one chance, one opportunity. Let's do this.
And they steal the card from the janitor.
Yeah.
And they just put him on it. I'm not going to lie. I did like this part because it reminds me of, like, if you want to get into filmmaking, buy any material related to the making of Evil Dead. This is a Sam Raimi moment. Like, I don't know if you ever watched Evil Dead, all those shots of, like, the ghost, like, you know, the POV of the demons, what the fuck that was. They did those by getting, like, a 2x4 and, like, just taping the camera to it and just like running with it. And at one point there was another thing where they did this, where they got the 2x4, they held it up, and they just like pushed someone on a cart.
For some reason, I was so sure that the manga actually mentioned Evil Dead, but I don't think it ever does.
I don't think it does. And I was expecting to mention it here, if anywhere. Like, this is such an Evil Dead tracking shot. Like, they don't have, like, you know, typically, if you don't know this, you get the camera, you lay down like track, like actual track, and you put the doll, you put the tripod on wheels, and you fix those wheels to the track, and then you just push it. And it goes down the set thing. No, there's no shaking, no nothing. But they don't have that, so they just hold it up on a cart and pray. He even pretty much says that because, like, I guess the gimbal he has is too cheap to like accommodate for all 4 motions. So he's like, just hold it steady and pray this works.
After that, we're treated to another flashback. This is where he's watching Top Gun. Actually, we see him sitting out PE, and then we see him watching Top Gun in bed. I don't know if it's just the angles in the manga, but I know Tom Cruise is short, but he looks much shorter in comparison to Val Kilmer in this one panel. than he did in the picture of it I looked up online.
This is the part at the end of it, the chapter where he's like doing that little flashback and he wakes up, where he's talking to Tenmaku at some point, and what's her face shows up, Himeki shows up, yeah, and she's like, "Oh, I heard you talking to someone. Was that? I thought what's his name was here. I actually forgot his name. The musician dude. I thought musician dude was here. Junosuke, whatever his last name is, and I thought he was here. Oh, but then again, you're a 14-year-old boy. That's kind of normal. I'm like, what?
Look at yourself. She thinks she's a chuny.
Exactly.
So I guess day one of shooting is complete.
So at this point, actually, just to like latch on a little bit to what you were saying about her, like hearing him talk to Tenmaku, I really assumed that this was going somewhere.
Oh, that she's gonna be
nobody ever finds out about Tenmaku.
We're jumping the gun here, but I would like to think that in the future he would have to tell them. But I guess we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, during this manga, they never discover him. You would think that would happen by the end, especially when they realize they're running out of time. It's like maybe we'll reveal to him. You know,
I was like, this is gonna be the thing. Like 2 chapters from the end, they're gonna find out he didn't write the script, and there's gonna be a little conflict there. Nothing.
But no. And the next chapter is the one where they go to her studio. Oh, the thing I was going to say real fast before the last chapter, I kind of was expecting a will they, won't they, like romance between Shinichi and Himeki, and that never happens either. Like, I guess
I'm glad it doesn't. Yeah, but I also was kind of expecting it.
So I guess if you want that, you're not going to get it. But also, it is kind of refreshing. They didn't just go the obvious route. But yeah, the next chapter has him going to the set.
The Crimson Estate sounds like a good movie.
Yes,
by the way.
It's a murder mystery.
Yeah, Himeki's playing a maid in this movie who learns that her boss has just murdered someone and is helping him cover it up. I was very much thinking, is this supposed to be Knives Out in Japan or something?
My favorite thing was that, like, this is when you learn what a great actress she is, what a great director this dude is, and what a great synergy an actress and an actor could possibly, an actress and a director could possibly have. And because the first scene she shoots is like when she finds the body and she like screams and gets scared, and he's like, that's not right, like dig into the character, whatever, that find do it again. And the next take is her coming in, not being surprised and trying to hide the body.
Well, I mean, she gives her reasoning for it in character, like why she thinks is that she's just so devoted. She sees, oh, he must have done this. I have to help protect him. I'm going to do that.
I feel like Tenmaku should have a say in this, because that's the kind of thing where at that point you are making 2 completely different movies. Like that's not the same. That's not the same story at all. Like one, she's scared. One, she's a straight out 100%. She will get convicted along with him, accomplice to murder.
To be fair, it might have just been that she moved from scared to like, I have to help, and she's just jumping over that bit in this. But we don't, well, obviously, like all these, we don't really see an entire script, so we can't judge it by any more than what we've seen. So yes, Shinichi's on set for the day. Some staff members pull him aside and tell him to get lost. They think he's just a sleazeball after Himeki, and they don't want him hanging around.
Are you gonna mention the coiling, the wire coiling?
Yes,
that's true.
Oh yeah,
because like they're like, go coil this, and he holds it up. He's like, oh, figure 8 coiling. Because if you don't know, when you have like a really, especially you don't have to do this with small cables because they're too small. But if you have a really, 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 really long cable, you want to go back and forth how you coil it so that it doesn't get all crimped. Yeah, JD, you might remember this past weekend we were at a convention and I was complaining to a certain mutual friend of ours that he has this like 18, and I'm not joking by the way, he's like an 18-foot long HDMI cable, and he didn't properly do that, so like it was all crimped in the middle, and I had to like literally pull the whole thing out at home, uncrimp it, then fold it the right way. I'm sure he already broke it now. I'm sure he ruined that cable. But yes, if you're reading this manga and you take one thing away from it, take care of your cables, guys.
Please. They get expensive too.
Yes.
So we're also introduced to the assistant director. We're talking about how assistant directors are just as important as directors. And in some cases, they suggest they get paid even more because they're running as much stuff. And we're introduced to the director, Fukashi Yukio. He won the contest in which they're going to be entering the shore.
Oh, we didn't even mention that earlier. Sorry, yeah. At one point after she read the script the first time, she entered Himeki entered the movie into the contest.
Right. Like, yeah, and that kind of gives them a deadline. Like it has to be done by this point now.
Yeah. Yes. The Apiransu film contest, otherwise known as Apicon. He won it in college, and he's trained with some of the best. And he's been working with Himeki for a while.
If he knows Akira Kurosawa,
I mean, legally distinct.
Yeah, legally distinct Akira Kurosawa. I do want to point out that I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. I haven't worked on any big budget film sets, but I think the assistant director, all that all those details about the assistant directors are more of a Japanese thing. Roles are a lot more segmented in most big productions in the US, and the assistant director usually is just the person who kind of like makes sure things like, like the continuity kind of stuff. They're holding the script and they're checking against it. Also, because I think Japanese productions in general are just smaller. You have like 5 people working a camera in the US, so don't take some of this stuff to total heart. If you're
working in the American film industry,
yeah, don't get an assistant director and give them all the jobs. I think that's the way you do things.
And this chapter ends with Himeki doing a take, and then it being a good take, but the director asks for another take just because he feels like he can get another one, like a better one out of her. And that continues into our next chapter, chapter 10, director Fukashi Yukio. I basically put it as, and another one. He's going full Kubrick on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where we learn that Himeki is so special. She's the most unique, talented, most strongestest 14-year-old there's ever been.
Yeah. In the previous chapter, there's a scene where she's walking and everyone's like following behind her, like not tending to her needs, but like they're all waiting on her,
She's the kid sister everybody loves on set. I think it's a better way to put it rather than anything special. They've seen her like grow throughout. They've formed an attachment with her because they've been working together so long. I think it's obviously played up in the heightened sense of reality that just about any manga has.
And so Himeki told the studio told everyone on production, oh, this is just my friend from school. He's in the cinema club and I invited him. So everyone's being nice to him. They're like letting him look through the camera and like touch things and like just talking to him in general. Director hates him, right off the bat. And he's all like, you're an
super protective.
Yeah, he's like, you're a film director, are you? Like, we can tell our kind of way, He's like almost like Himeki's father figure, so to speak. There's this weird scene, and you could read it weird if you want, but I don't mean weird that way, where like Himeki wrote him a letter in one of her earlier movies, like when she was really young, I guess, but like, thank you for getting the best performance out of me, like sign Himeki or whatever, and he keeps that with him, and I'm like, he just puts that in his pocket everywhere, like what? They find out he's doing a movie, and it's like, good for you. I'm just glad Himeki's not in it, kind of thing.
Does he know? He doesn't know.
Also, I have this in my notes, and I mentioned this to B before when we were still reading. I mean, I kept wondering, is the director and the AD dating? Because like they seem very coupley at the end of the scene. The way they walk off together.
We'll never find out.
Yeah, we'll never find out.
Unless we ever get to interview the authors, then we can ask them, see if they have any idea.
I have a lot of questions.
I don't want to know what the authors of this have to say.
I'm gonna email them.
I'm gonna email them. Like, I'm good.
We should get to that real fast. I've seen a couple episodes of Food Wars. I never read the manga. It's an anime, right?
Yes.
The one with that dude. I did not like Food Wars. So
yeah, I never read the manga. I watched the anime. I also do not like Food Wars.
I'm so surprised. This is the
Yeah. I only saw the first episode. I got a bit squicked out with the food and stuff and how that was all done with the fan service. But I read this having no idea who it was for the first couple chapters. Like, okay, this is good. I'll admit what I like when I like it, even if it's from someone who made something I didn't like before.
But yeah, so the director, that chapter ends with the director and the assistant director probably going on a date. And also before the director leaves, he's all like, by the way, don't think of her that way either, Himeki. Like, don't date her, Which, once again, I don't think anyone has to worry about because there is none of that in this manga.
Basically, they say their goodbyes. The AD and the director asked to see the shore when it's done. As Manuel said, tells him not to get too close to Himeki in the overprotective big brother kind of way. Then we get a flashback to Himeki's childhood. Her mother is a very controlling momager, as we see. She sees the potential in her daughter as an actress, but limits her potential to kind of live the normal life that she also wants to have along with that.
No, because of that. You're skipping the best part. You're skipping the best part. She's a failed actress too. It was like a one-line throwaway line. She apparently failed and she was like, oh, you have to do what I couldn't or something like that.
Yeah, it comes back up later. It's in my notes. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that, Himeki felt alienated until Hajime showed her the script. In this way, we kind of get a sense that they're as different as their life trajectories may have seen. They have a very similar core of their personality of feeling that alienation and that belonging through film and media.
And now's as good a time to mention, I think, they start referencing it now, but there were some really, really slight references earlier that the script has something to do with Nagisa and her mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is this the one? Yeah, this is the chapter where they're acting and he has to like convince his friend to act good.
I think that's the next chapter, but yeah, we get to the end of their chapter? We get to the end of their semester at school, so now it's time to start filming the rest of the film during summer break. They add on some extra cast members. We learn that there are 5 major roles in the film, of which 4 have been cast. The last one is Shimada, as we've talked about, and because Hajime or Shinichi can't play themselves, Bito's taking over that role.
Yeah, we find out he can't act, but now he can.
Oh, also there's a really cool scene where like presumably this happens more, but they only show it really here. Well, whenever they film in public, it's very guerrilla style, which by the way makes no sense because 10 chapters ago when they went to do the location scouting, they went to like the city hall to try to get actual legal permits or find, and then they never do it apparently. Which by the way, I don't know if you know this, but like I'm sure in Japan it works the same way because most places it does. Most of the stuff is actually free. You just have to fill out the right forms and get the right permit. Now obviously some places it's not free, but like you'll find that out. But you can actually film. You don't have to go 100% guerrilla filmmaking. But I'm like, they literally showed them doing that process, and they just guerrilla filmmake anyway.
I think that's just because it's fun for like it's more exciting to do it that way rather than say, oh yeah, hey, this is closed off. Let's just film here.
Yeah, the thing I want to talk about is Tenmaku like just sits on top of like he like becomes like a cat on top of a street light or something, and he just like watches. Okay, after this couple leaves, you got 5 minutes, kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm. So yes, we see them test fitting for the outfits in Tokyo. Clothes courtesy of Aoi's big sisters, who really want to hang out with his friends for some reason.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like
Bito blows the first couple of takes, messing up his lines, but Fukuhashi at this point is kind of rubbed off on Hajime a bit, and so Hajime asks for a couple more takes to kind of push for that better performance, which eventually gets something out of Bito that's usable.
I didn't have it in my notes because I do remember seeing Falcor, but I wasn't sure if it was the right scene. Yeah, the scene he was drawing, by the way, was Neverending Story, and it was when what's Sebastian's writing Falcor. I just want to get back into that.
Yeah, that's close to the end of this chapter. We also get a bit more about the plot of the short. I'm revealing it as we kind of go through the plot at this point and get to there. So Nagisa's father's family controls the local area. Her mother married into that family, but due to her strained relationship with her in-laws, she disappeared when Nagisa was 5. In the present, Nagisa is still waiting for her mother to come home and has skipped school to go visit her mother in Tokyo, wearing some of her mother's old clothes, and brought her friend Shimada along with her. That's kind of the basic setup of our plot here. Bito thinks that Shimada is too cool for him to play because he's not a cool guy, but everyone else focuses on the kindness and that they kind of both share that underlies both of their characters, and that gets him to be his normal self. We then get another flashback of how Hajime and Bito became friends. As Manuel, we mentioned before, Hajime was the outsider, and Bito kind of welcomed him in when he saw him drawing a picture of Falcor from the Amazing Stories, or Neverending Story.
Is Bastian writing Falcor, presumably at the end of the movie, because that's when he's like, yeah, he has his hand up.
Mm-hmm. And that's when we get our usable take. It was sometime around here that they probably learned that the manga was going to be wrapped up by chapter 21. Yeah. Because as Jump kind of works every 10 weeks or so, they look at how your manga has been averaging in the rankings by the readers. And so I guess for whatever reason, this didn't really take off with readers as much as Food Wars had, which is a shame because I'm really liking this one.
Now that we were kind of at that point where we were talking about that real fast, I think this manga would have also worked a little better if they filmed this movie faster and if it was about him making lots of movies. And I know that we would have probably lost that whole plot about the contest. Maybe make that the 3rd or 4th movie. Like, I just feel like this would have worked better if Tenmaku was writing several things. Like, he wrote actual short, like as in like a 5-minute short, and they published it online, and then like it got 1 million hits on YouTube, but they published it anonymously, so nobody really knows it's them. And then they did it a second short, and now like Himeki shows her face more, and it's like, oh, is that Himeki? But she kind of doesn't look like Himeki. I don't know. I feel like this plot would have worked better if it moved faster. If it's just a Shonen Jump, this isn't the hobby magazines I mentioned earlier. I think this doesn't have like the quick payoff. That, no offense, like Shonen Jump is like meant to be, how do I put this like in a nice way? Nothing's wrong with it, but it's meant to be like really dumb, you know, like weekly like trash manga. Like, good.
Shonen Jump for Naruto.
I mean this in the.
I feel like that's an insult to a lot of great manga that have come out of that magazine, Manuel.
Okay, I mean this in a good way. I know this sounds like I'm not, but I don't know where to put it. It's like, it's good, dumb stories. It's like reading a Marvel. It's like watching a Marvel movie.
Once again, I think there are a lot of like, maybe not super deep, but I think you're giving them way too little, or some of them way too little credit.
Possibly. I mean, I am over generalizing. I will tell you that right off the bat. But when you think of Shonen Jump, you don't think of anything like this. You think of like things that tell you quick, short, choppy stories, and they have good characters, but you kind of like the character depth kind of happens over a long period of time. You just like them right away, and they do a bunch of little things. Maybe in 3 years when they realize, oh, I guess they're not going to counsel me yet, then you get like some more in-depth bits.
Yeah, like when I think of Shonen Jump, I think of Naruto.
Exactly. This is dragged. Okay, and by the way, I'm using these terms negatively. I don't think this story dragged, but for Shonen Jump, this story is dragging. You know what I mean? Like, you want something to happen. You want there to be a school bully who smashes their phone or something. You want something like that. You want real conflict. You can't just have this character piece.
But I think, like, as I compared it to Bakuman earlier, I think it's running in that kind of style for Shonen Jump. Similar manga that I can think of off the top of my head would be Showa Shoten, which is one about a pair doing a manzai act, kind of similarly paced. Not as much big conflict. It's just, hey, are we going to win this competition? But that's all I'm going to say for now. But it's also a really good, really funny story of like two friends doing comedy.
It's from here on that the story becomes like fast paced to the point where they clearly need to finish that they're filming this movie. And I feel like the chapters start having a lot less focus. Well, this one, not so much. This one's like has Tenmaku's like backstory a bit.
Yeah. So proceeding on to chapter 13, very well named Takehiko Tenmaku. We see a flashback. We learn more of Tenmaku's backstory. He's apparently the child of an affair between an actress who killed herself and another famous actor. He apparently has no other living relatives. Is his father also dead, or is he just disowned by that family? Apparently his mother was a big part of Shirakawa's works, or he looked after Tenmaku's mother and now looks after Tenmaku as well. And he, in that case, is Shirakawa. This got him into the writer's room, and Shirakawa is often seen asking him for advice on like lines or maybe some bigger pieces as well.
This is also the scene where it reminded me of, you ever watched the episode of The Simpsons where Moe mentions he was on the Little Rascals and he kills the original Alfalfa? And like at the end, when they flash forward, he's like, it's like, did you get in trouble, Mo? It's like, no, it turns out he was an orphan owned by the studio. That's what that story sounds like. Because he like pointed the director take him in like that, like unless he was involved in the affair somehow. That just seemed kind of weird. I was just like, is he owned by the studio too?
I assume he's just more unofficially adopted since no one else wants to take him in.
But the reason why that really stuck with me too about killing the original Alfalfa orphan, is that how he died? And is that what the killer thinks? Like, don't worry, he was an orphan owned by the studio.
Actually,
we'll never know. They don't talk. That's the last flashback we have of Tenmaku.
During the scene, we also
last anything of him we really get.
Mm-hmm. During this scene, we see Tenmaku reading a script called The Men Who Borrow the Tiger's Tail, a reference to Kurosawa's The Men Who Tread on the Tiger's Tail, which is based on a kabuki play called Kanjicho, which is based on a no play called Ataka. I looked this all up.
Yeah, and I also looked up my notes because I had a feeling this is the spot. This is when, like, B already like hinted at it. This is when like Tenmaku almost drops out of his own story, and my notes get a lot shorter because like there's nothing really worth mentioning in the next like few chapters. Like there's things worth mentioning, but like the chapters really aren't. Like I was surprised how fast they were speeding by. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Going back to Tenmaku's flashback, he talks about how the rumors about the circumstances of his birth. We don't even know if the story I gave you a few minutes ago is even true. Made it impossible to make friends. So he spent time reading Shirakawa's collections of scripts and watched his movies. He has, obviously, as a director, he's a big cinephile as well, has his own big collections. We can see the connections fairly clearly between him and Hajime and Himeki at this point, how they're all kind of outcasts who found a world for themselves in cinema that they're now using to connect themselves to other people. And right before production on The Fang was supposed to start, this is where Shirakawa finally wanted to put Tenmaku's name in the credits. Tenmaku didn't really want that attention, but then Shirakawa gives him this pen name, Takehiko Tenmaku. It's not his birth name, it's just the pen name he was going to go by. So we don't even know what his actual name is at this point.
Oh, yeah. Well, as I was wondering about that, too, like, what the hell? There's so many weird little mysteries. And like you said, like, if this is when they knew they were getting it canceled, it couldn't have been that much longer. It had been around this time, no matter how you look at it. Why include mysteries now? This was your chance. This feels like the Yu Suzuki Shenmue 3 thing. This was your chance to wrap that up, and you just wasted it. You included new mysteries for no reason.
So, yes, we learned that we see the kanji for Tenmaku here are Ten, Heaven, and Maku, which my basic search said something about curtain bunting or like the end of an act of a play. So you can see that he's like the heavenly playmaker in this sense, or playwright. I really like that kind of meaningful name.
Akira Kurosawa killed him himself to like, I know that's not his name, Ryu Shirakawa killed him himself to like send him in the future.
Right after that, we cut straight to Tenmaku waking up as a ghost in a theater, seeing Shirakawa's Six Beasts, which going by the context was in production when he died because he seemed surprised that his line choice was used. This is when he sees Hajime. We also see Hajime has posters for a movie called Osaka Story. There's a movie by that title, but I couldn't find the exact poster. And one called Platinum Task, which I couldn't find or couldn't tell if it was a reference to a certain film. It looks vaguely neo-noirish or like something not a Dirty Harry. It seems to be building up to the big emotional conclusion, but then it ends on the gag. Tenmaku says, eventually the Fang will need a director. Pause for effect. And until I find them, you're the perfect person to kill some time with.
The Fang never gets made. So moving on, though, that chapter also ends with them saying like, "Oh, we're halfway through the filming of the movie." Mm-hmm. I'm like, guys, you showed like them filming 2 scenes, but okay. The next scene's location, like a location shoot at one of the dudes' houses. I forget like who.
Akitsu's house.
Akitsu? Okay, because I remember like
his grandparents' house, but.
Oh, the grandparent. Yeah. They distract his mom because like they assume that she'll recognize her and that recognize Himeki, by the way. That she'll recognize Himeki, and even if they swear to secrecy, she'd probably gossip to someone. Mm-hmm. But my favorite part of this entire chapter, and I mentioned this like to be when we were doing our pre-notes, is that they show the grandpa who I guess owns the house. He is going to be in the movie playing the grandpa, and. He cannot act. He is like overacting, like his heart out, and they never address it.
I assume they just did enough takes to wear down his overacting.
Yeah, like I was waiting for Shinichi to give another like Braveheart like speech where he like inspires him or whatever. Doesn't happen.
So they have 2 hours to film this scene because Himeki is doing it between projects.
Oh yeah, they dressed up one of the extra rooms to be Nagisa's room, and they realize how. First of all, I have it in my notes like skirt fake out scene because she's changing clothes and like I don't know why they filmed it this way. It's like, oh, she dropped her skirt, and then you think that they're gonna show her like in her panties or whatever, but when they actually show what they filmed, she's like wearing like pants underneath it for some reason. But they're filming her scene and they realize the scene's too like unrealistic. I mean, the set is too unrealistic.
Yeah, it's too clean.
Which is a very huge problem in a lot of things. A YouTuber I watch, I forget his name, talked about this recently, how a lot of like Netflix productions have this issue where like the sets and the costumes look like they just made them.
Oh my god!
And it's true. Yeah. It's like it's so true, and it's surprising that multi-billion-dollar projects do not understand this little concept. Things need to look lived in and used.
To be fair, Netflix is multi-billion. Their movies are probably maybe multi-million if they're lucky for some of the cheaper ones.
But yeah, they're not high school kids filming on no money and an iPhone, though. Mm-hmm. They noticed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a huge problem in student films. If you've ever been around a lot of student films, that they don't really do set design. And I do appreciate that they kind of like were like, hey, let's actually do something. And it looks a lot better.
Yeah, they bring some books and like a plushie and some other junk.
But basically any junk that they can find or buy goes into that room. And I like that this also showed the one advantage that a mobile phone might have other than its easily availability to anyone or easy accessibility to anyone. And that would be mobility. Trying to shoot that with like a big film rig, even like a handheld one, would be a pain.
Yeah, they would have had to cut the room in half.
Yeah. No, yeah. Typically, what you would do for real, like B just said, you would either film one half of the room, like empty the other half, film it, then film the other half, or you would, no joke, you would just tear out a wall, just tear out a wall and just put it
build
back
it
up.
As a set.
Wait, you're saying they break the fourth wall manual?
Yeah, no. Well, believe it or not, sometimes tearing out the wall is cheaper than building the set. So you would just tear out the wall. You would rent the house, tear out the wall, and just pay for the new wall. But they get the shot done. All this just for like, I don't know if she even had lines in that scene. She's just like sitting wistfully by the window in the thing they show.
Like one of the things I mentioned before when we were talking about the director is how Himeki hasn't really had a stable group of friends before. And like Hajime is her first friend. And here she gets her friendship with the others kind of confirmed when Hajime says that this kind of rush to finish things is good as long as we're doing it with friends, which obviously is to show that she's kind of in the friend group now with everyone. Oh yeah,
I have that in my notes too because at one point they're like, "Oh, you're gonna hang out with, you're gonna see your friend Shinichi, right? That's his name." She's like, "I don't know if he's my friend. I should ask him next time." The AD's like, "I don't think that's how friends work." Have we? Oh no, I think it's. Is this the next one about the music?
Yes, next one is chapter 15, movies and music.
Okay, so. This is the one when they realize that they kind of need a soundtrack. Also, this is the part where she brings all the snacks for their editing, and she just brings a crap ton of snacks.
Important to note that he doesn't just realize offhand, oops, I forgot a soundtrack. It's that he planned to just do like an ambient thing, and then he's like, actually, maybe music instead. Yeah, so let's ask the guy whose personality is music.
That's one of my big pet peeves for any movie. JD knows, if you're fans of our other podcasts, you might have heard me rant about that in our horror movie thing. I cannot stand the original Dracula, which is considered a classic by anyone else. I cannot fucking stand that movie because there's no soundtrack. There is no soundtrack. And I know that was one of like the first movies, but they had an excuse at least. Dude, you were in 2023 whenever this was, I assume that's when this was made because we'll get to that in a minute. This is, I assume 2023. Put a soundtrack. And they go against using library music, like B said. That's like, oh, we have Music Guy, whose name is Music Guy.
Akitsu. But okay.
He's going to write the 2 themes that they're going to use. They need one theme for like an insert song and one theme for the ending.
He doesn't want to do it, and then he does, and it's perfect.
Well, because Himeki talks him into it.
Yeah.
I think you're trivializing a bit of it, but essentially, this is also where Shinichi references Soviet director Andrei Tarkovsky, who directed Solaris, who apparently had a distaste for music and film, according to his collaborator, Eduard Atamiev. He said he didn't need overtures, main themes, and lyric songs, only ambience and organizations of sounds and noises, which sounds like a weird way of saying very basic music and just the rest of the noise. Aki, too, as we said, suggests using public domain sources that they can find online, but Shinichi thinks that only someone with an understanding of the movie would be able to write something, and Akitsu's the only one for the job. He relents on the condition that if he fails, they fall back on public domain music.
Yeah, for the record, for anyone wanting to make a movie out there's nothing wrong using public domain music. Very, very famously, Night of the Living Dead, probably, actually, no, as far as I'm concerned, one of the top 5 greatest movies of all time is all public domain. That movie's all public domain, but the music is all public domain as well. It was not made for that movie, and there's some themes that feel like they were almost the way they're like added into the movie. So you could definitely do it.
Yeah, because it's not about where the music comes from. It's just about if you have a good ear for like something that will fit well with what you're making.
You might be sitting there for like days going through like libraries so you find the things you want, but you could probably find it, especially today. Like, imagine having to do this like, pre-internet.
I don't remember where it is in this chapter. I just have in my notes that there's another direct reference to a film Nobody Knows from 2004, a Japanese film based on a true story. I just want to add that in there to our list of films that get referenced here.
Oh, I wonder where that was. But yeah, and at the end, like, you can get there, the end when he's writing music.
Yeah, and Himeki comes in and kind of helps him with his struggles. How he has that creative problem where starting something is easy, finishing something is hard, and that applies to just about every creative discipline.
I'm sure we're all familiar.
Yeah,
similar to B earlier saying, oh, like, I hate shonen manga or whatever. There's a scene where she has that like mischievous smile, and then she does like that mischievous finger snap or thumbs up, whatever she does when she leaves the room. And I'm like, I hate those faces she's making. I just want to punch her. And I mean that in a non-violent way, but I hate those faces. Those 2 faces are just on like a billion characters in manga. I don't know why. I just hate that stereotype.
Yeah, and because of that, or because of like everything they've been through, Akitu very much admires Shinichi's devotion to movies and wants to live up to the expectations that he has for this project. He tries to wave off his praise of his music again, which I feel is another thing a lot of creatives go through, this kind of imposter syndrome, like, no, I don't deserve all that praise I'm getting. It's clear that you see something that is not there, but obviously you have to understand that there is some reason that people like you or like your work.
Also, I just want to mention this was a chapter where I wondered, are they going to be the couple? And of course that doesn't happen either. As in they, I mean, music guy and Himeki.
Akitsu is his name, Manuel.
Akitsu and Himeki. Because honestly, they let it be the most coupley because, the two traditionally pretty people or whatever. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but yeah.
Next chapter is hectic shooting. We learn a bit more about the plot of The Shore as they are filming a scene where Nagisa takes Shimada to visit her mother in Tokyo. They go up to the gate. Her mother isn't actually seen, as the chapter notes. Her appearance is only implied through a woman's laughter through the fence.
That is also such a film school thing, but go on.
I mean, it's hey, we had to film this thing in like a month and have like $10 for a budget. Let's make this work. They still have to shoot that pedestrian crossing in the rain scene, but that will have to wait for actual rain. So now it's beach time again.
No, wait, you're skipping the best part. Part where they're filming that scene on the street where they realize the sisters can't do the part, so they replace them with the boy, the makeup dude. Yeah. She knows something. He ends up, I forget his name. Yeah. Doesn't matter. You gotta play the girl though. And I'm like, oh, he's like, I'm shy. He does that. That's another, I hate shonen manga. He does the I'm shy kind of face,
So yes, they're doing 3 days, 2 nights on the beach. Let's go. Or Himeki had to push through finishing a lot of scenes in a row to get this off while her mom was out of town because she still hasn't told her mother yet. This is when we learn, when we and the rest of Team Shinichi find out that her mother is the CEO of her agency. We also learn of the distance between mother and child, just like in The Shore. That's probably what spoke to her when she first read it.
Yeah.
Himeki says her mother would never listen to her desires to be in this movie, and maybe just about anything in general. Before that, we get to that night shoot where Aoi has to fill in for both his sisters who couldn't make it and play the role of Enna.
Oh, that was part of the beach thing? I didn't know that was part of the beach thing. Sorry. See, I'm losing the plot. I'm losing the plot here because the way these chapters are moving.
I think they go, we filmed that scene, now it's time to go to the beach, but there's still like the one night shoot before that. I think that's the plot of this. I think I have my notes written in chronological order on page.
You want to hear my one note for the next chapter? The one where they actually make it to the beach? My one note
The one other thing I want to bring up before we move on to the beach is that obviously Oe, he might have a kind of feminine voice if his voice hasn't broken yet, but he ends up playing that role, and they said, yeah, we'll just get one of your sisters to film it or re-record it in ADR.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me about that. I forgot about that because
They
there's
talk
no
about
way
ADR
that's going to
so
match.
much.
That's no way that's going to look good. There's none. You know how hard that is to do? You know how hard it is to dub live action? We've all made fun of those movies. It doesn't matter if they're doing the exact same lines. You will 99, actually not even, what am I being that nice for? You will 1000% tell. There's no way that's going to look good.
They probably had the advantage of it being dark, so you might not be able to see his lips in the shot. They may also just be filming him from the back, so you don't see anything of the movement of his lip.
I don't know. I just imagine B might know this. If as a film school person, everyone knows. By the way, I actually went to film school. Everyone knows that like the biggest tell of a low budget movie is not like anything else about like the acting, the whatever. It's the sound. You could put it on and you hear the sound. It's like, oh, this movie's gonna be terrible. And sometimes it's gonna be unwatchable. And like, there's so many things going on about this, about the way they're doing the sound. I'm like, you cannot watch this movie.
Sound or lighting, like
So
there's a real fun
what?
Oh, I know a little bit more about film than they do moment in the next chapter that I'm sure Manuel you also noticed. If we're ready to move on to the next one.
My note for the next chapter is random beach nonsense followed by an even randomer bath scene. Yes, I know randomer is not a word, but still by an even randomer bath scene. And then I go a bit more. But yeah, what was your note, B? I'm curious how, like, let's have you.
So they talk about how ideally we would just shoot in script order.
Yes.
No, you wouldn't. That would never be ideal in any situation.
I saw a meme
and then
about
there's
this
also student films often. I literally forgot what they said at this point.
I think they say
like
student films often try to shoot in script order, while professionals do it in a way that minimize the changing of costumes, location, and obviously characters in and out of set.
No, they don't. Student films don't do that. This doesn't happen.
If anything, it's like any other big budget production, but on steroids, because you might film something that it's like, oh, but we're not ready to film the rest of this till like the summer, but you might be filming that first scene in August or something. Well, sorry, I mean like the previous August.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, well, I'm filming this for that movie I'm doing like next year. I feel like there's a lot more piecemeal stuff. I think even especially with student films, I think they're doing some of that here, where like you might shoot the actor you have there, and you're just like, oh, I'll make this work somehow. I'll just shoot all of them and then pretend they're talking to nothing here. But then when we get there, we'll film the other half, and that never looks right. But you're gonna do that. I saw and I know they mentioned that for big budget productions already, but I saw the meme right now, and this is a true thing. If you ever watched Lord of the Rings trilogy, the scene where everyone leaves Middle Earth to go to like the West or whatever, that was the first scene shot. That was the first scene shot of the trilogy. And it's just like, you just have to do that kind of shit.
Yeah, I think it's more because from the outside perspective, you would think filming it in order kind of makes sense because you want to follow the character and the arc of the film. But obviously filming it out of order so that you have things changing as least or as little as possible makes a whole lot more sense when you're running a production like that.
That's why direction is so important in general. And that's why continuity is important, especially that's why continuity is important. Because you might be filming two scenes together. Like you might watch a movie, like I always point this out when I watch Big Trouble in Little China. There's a scene, it feels so random, where Kurt Russell's crawling through this like pipe and he takes off his jacket. And the only reason he does that is because everything they film later, he doesn't have his jacket on because they forgot to put it on him. So it's like, oh shit, we gotta like film a little pickup where you take it off. I don't know.
So all that is why I think like the craft aspects of it are really fun. It's the best parts of the manga are when they're working on the movie, for sure. It becomes a lot more fun to read, watching them work on it and everything. It's where I became a lot more positive overall when I was like, oh, I really like watching them do all this. The craft, the sort of the I guess screenwriting classes would call it the fun and games. But like I wish they'd leaned more into like these are amateurs who don't know what they're doing and leaned into more of the steps, like the sort of corners you have to cut as a film student, and like lean more into how janky it was going to be. Yeah, because it would have been funnier and also more realistic.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we probably would have seen them improving on had this picked up for another, say, 50 chapters or so. So we see them filming a scene at the beach. Shinichi specifically references Takeshi Kitano's A Scene at the Sea. Add that to the list of movies referenced if you want to go look through this.
Is that where he shoots himself in the head?
No.
Oh, well, that also happens at a beach. But anyway.
No, apparently he filmed a surfing meet in real time to get realistic footage.
Right.
So he's giving them more free reign to play in the water just to try and get that naturalistic sense of friends or their friendship. We also see them wrapping up the scene of Nagisa lying in the water and crying in the ocean, which is the first scene in the movie.
Yep.
Then we get that random panel of Himeki in the bath for some reason. Before we see Shinichi editing the film on his tablet, and then the team just hanging out before they go to bed. We learn more of the plot of the pedestrian crossing scene. Having like heard her mother's laughter, she realizes her mother is happy even without her beloved daughter, or her supposedly beloved daughter, which just kind of gives her that sense of like unhappiness, hoping that she could cure that kind of stuff.
This chapter ends with her like being like suddenly not knowing she's a Nagisa character, and like the next chapter is where like the only real conflict really appears in this whole manga series, where she has to confront her issues with her mother.
So they're filming the final scene, which is Nagisa just like walking along the beach when someone like says hello to her. I think it's supposed to be Shimada, judging by who's filming this scene, and then she kind of looks back and says like wistfully, "I'm home."
I'm home. Yeah.
But she just cannot get out the emotions of the scene. Hajime looks to Tenmaku for help. Tenmaku says, "You're the director now. This is your job. Go do it."
So, like, the next scene is when we get...
where Tenmaku says, like, surpass me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you were 18, chill.
Yeah. It's such an emo thing to say.
Well, but yeah. I think he's trying to make Hajime step up as the director and kind of get that performance out of an actor, because he knows that given the general rules of ghosts in fiction, as soon as he gets to a point where his unresolved issues are resolved, he's just going to disappear and Hajime is going to be on his own.
So yeah, I have it in my notes. Chapter 18 is where we finally know the whole plot of the shore. I feel like that's also really annoying, and I don't care what JD says. Like I think I'm still hitting on the net with Shonen Jump. Half the complaints I see about this manga as it's running, in English at least, I should say more accurately, are people saying I had to stop reading by chapter 12 because they keep talking about the shore and never tell me the plot. I'm sorry, but the Shonen Jump audience is not made for this kind of thing where you tell the plot piecemeal and don't discover it until like way into it. I feel like
people would have said the same thing about like Bakuman or Death Note when it came out, and you don't know that something's going to be like this breakout hit until it actually hits.
Because everyone go out there and read the reviews for this, and almost every negative one will bring up the fact that nothing happens, the plot's not explained until and I don't think they even get to when it does. They stop.
I do think, like, in a way, it does make it like a bad fit for Shonen Jump, but I also do appreciate and respect the creators' like willingness to just say like, well, fuck them, I'm gonna write what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that is how something good gets made. That is how you get. I'm also still to this day so shocked that Death Note ran in Shonen Jump, because sometimes you just gotta, well, that's who they have an in with, that's who they're gonna publish with, and they're gonna write what they want. And obviously it didn't work out this time, but it could have.
Yeah.
So real fast, this is the chapter where they have to convince Nagisa. See, I'm doing it. Convince Himeki to channel that energy, and Shinichi goes to go meet her because she went to go out on a walk by herself. The one funny scene in this chapter, and I think one of the last funny scenes in general, is like she leaves and he's chasing after her to go talk to her, and like she stops and he like bumps into her and like crashes, and it's like what the hell? It's like, but that's a strong core. She has strong core strength
because he bumps into her like he would into a pole, and she doesn't fall over.
She doesn't move at all. Yeah, he falls over. And she doesn't even like move. But yeah, that's when we learn more about the relationship between Himeki and her mom. This is actually that scene I mentioned earlier where we learn that she's a failed actress, very much a stage mom thing. She's always like, you have to do harder, you have to like, be good and whatever. They show the director and the AD being really nice to her, which is, by the way, she always worked with this crew. Is this like the only people that make her movies or whatever?
I think it's just that she's worked with them a lot, and since she was young, it was spelled out earlier in chapter like 9 or 10.
Yeah, and then the whole thing is like, I think the mom's like, oh, just do what your mom tells you, right? And you'll be fine. And that's kind of how she lives her life up to this point, apparently.
Yeah, and in a method similar to the last chapter, we see Shinichi asking her to play this closer to herself, because she has those same mixed emotions about her mother, and how her mother has been this specter looming over her life in some way, controlling it either through her overpresence in the case of Himeki or through her lack of presence in the case of Nagisa.
Yeah, and the manga goes full out and shows like Himeki as a puppet on strings too.
And because of this, she's able to finally get the proper emotions to film the final scene of the movie, but they still have that pedestrian crossing scene to film because they need to wait for it to rain. This scene ends in direct contrast to the shore, because we see Himeki coming home to her mother saying, "Welcome home." or her mother like coming in at home early because she didn't expect her mother to be home for another few days. And she's the one saying, welcome home, and thus asserting control over Himeki's life at this point. I really like
I didn't
this
even
ending.
get that. I didn't even get that. Yeah, for the record, in my notes, all I have is, oh no, the all is lost moment.
Yeah. No, I really like this because I saw that when I was rereading it, is that, oh, the last part is Nagisa admitting like that she's finally free of kind of the specter of her mother in her life. And then the last scene of this chapter that had to do with the filming of that scene is Himeki's mother kind of reasserting control of that she's back in her life.
So in the next one, the mom confronts her about the movie. And I want to point this out before I forget. They show the script and I went back and looked. I think this is still the same script. Is there only one copy of this script? Could the mom destroy everything by burning it right now? Well, I mean, they already filmed most of it, but still.
At some point they made
a photocopy or something, but yeah, because it was handwritten. He never typed it, you know.
I also did forget already that it was handwritten.
Yeah, I mean, we do see other people with copies of scripts, I believe, so there might be multiple copies. Plus, as Tenmaku noted in like the first chapter, he has the entirety of the Fang still in his head. I'm sure he has the entirety of the Shore in his head as well. If he can have like what I assume is at least a 90-minute movie in his head, he probably has the entirety of a 20-minute movie in his head.
So yeah, the mom refuses her to let it do it, of course, and she basically like, "No, mom, read the script, you'll understand." And she's like, "No, it's a student film. No, not doing it." Takes the radio phone and like, what's the word I'm looking for? Grounds her. And this is the part where the driver becomes a character.
Her mother, as we said, failed actress who's been asserting control over her daughter's life. And she like asks her, I did this all for you, Himeki. Was I wrong? Why don't you understand? Like we see Himeki's conflicted look on her face as she's just like seeing the scenes from her childhood again. And we know that her mother has had to put in work to get her roles, make sure she is famous and stays famous. And she's just worried that this is going to be kind of a stain on her career in a way. And I can understand that even if I know she's being way too over controlling of her daughter's life, especially at the age of 14. After that time passes, the group is still waiting for that rainy day, even though they haven't really heard from Himeki. One of them starts checking the weather on their phone. They're all walking together to school or some other event. Himeki has been incommunicado because her mother has grounded her at this point. And finally, the driver shows up and kind of explains the situation to Team Shinichi.
And so they're kind of like, what are we going to do? And I don't think they mentioned it. Honestly, if this was me and I was doing a student film, first of all, I'd be like upset too, but I'd be like, well, go get your sister, put her in a wig, and let's just film the scene anyway next time it rains. But that's not what they do. They basically just wait it out. The driver's driving Himeki, I guess, to a job. And
Manuel, I would like to add in a point before we get to there. They panic. They wonder what they're even going to do at this point. But most of them, I guess, have since resigned themselves to the fact that the Shore will never be completed. And I don't think it's that much of a stretch to imagine that this is also what the mangaka were feeling, as they knew that their manga only had 2 more chapters at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I think they even have Tenmaku be like, oh, these things happen. And for the record, these things happen all the fucking time. You know how many unfinished film projects I have? You know how much like random uncompleted reels I have of like just, I talk about this all the time. Like I have all these, like every so often I'll discover like the clips. I'm like, oh yeah, this was a scene we filmed. This was a camera test of a thing that we never went anywhere with. But I will say there's a difference, and maybe they're also channeling the same energy in the writing of the manga, but there's a difference when you start something and give up maybe 20, 30, even 50%. But if you are at 90% mark, just finish the damn thing, you know, like however you can.
I think they'd feel like it'd be a disservice to Himeki to not finish it with her if she's part of the core team. And it's not like she's gone and they're finishing it in her honor. She's still there, but I can understand what you're saying, Manuel. And so this segment is followed by like a page of just Hajime going through a dull, ordinary life over the course of probably a couple days to a week prior to coming to the crossing where they're going to film on the scene.
Real fast, I want to mention that I love that the part that me and B apparently, as in the part of the manga me and B felt like nothing happened, is the part where suddenly you have the most extensive notes. And they're not bad notes. Like you brought up some stuff that I didn't realize, the Welcome Home stuff. I just love how this is the part where I was checking out the series, and I loved it up to this point. This is the part where I'm checking out. This is the part where you were apparently like, oh man, now we're getting the meat.
This is like the emotional climax of the manga would have been for the arc, but this is for the entire manga at this point.
Yeah, like I think my Nothing Happened came a little earlier. For me, this is also the part I'm like, okay, we're finally getting like
I still think
payoff
nothing's happening
emotionally
here
for the characters.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
go
we
ahead.
see Himeki, her mother, her driver, and I assume just another assistant because there are 4 people in that car driving to a meeting for a new project when it suddenly starts raining. We get a beat panel just to emphasize how heavy this rainfall is before you see the look on Himeki's face change. She apologizes to her mother as she explains herself running out of the car towards the crossing. She obviously calls herself a stupid girl for thinking that the whole team would be there. But then, yeah, they're actually there because the manga movie magic.
Exactly. That makes no sense. It's like, film it. And like, by the way, I forgot to mention this earlier. One of the reasons why my little headcanon is maybe her and Akitsu might be the future couple is they feel very coupley in this movie. And maybe I'm just reading too much into it. Always looking for couples, always looking for heteronormative romances in movies or media. But like, I imagine them being a couple in the movie. But I mean the film, the short film, if you will. But yeah, they film it, and I love it because they mention it here too. If it's too loud, they make him wear like laugh mics, which I don't think they even had until this point. They didn't mention having, but they're like,
no, they mentioned having cheap lav mics, but very cheap lav mics.
But they're like, if it doesn't work, we'll dub it in later. I'm like, guys, stop thinking that'll work. And by the way, if the mom won't let her come out like to do this scene, what makes you think she should let her come out to the studio? Or they're not going to use the studio. Who am I kidding?
They're going to do it at school,
to the classroom.
Yeah, they're doing it in a classroom.
But yeah,
they get everything set up. They film the last scene, and like these lines for Nagisa seem to be coming also from Himeki's heart, like not just from an actor saying that they're her real emotions at this point. We get another flashback going into more detail about her mother's failed career as an actress. It's never really explained whether that's just because she didn't have the skill on her part or if it was a lack of support from her family that didn't let her pursue her dream. So she kind of goes all in for Himeki.
I am positive I'm thinking too much into this, but it was this scene that I thought maybe we were going to reveal. I know we had no time for this, but maybe they were going to reveal that Tenmaku was her child or something. I know that sounds really stupid, but like in my head, I'm like, Tenmaku has to be related to this whole scene somehow. He has to have known Nagisa. I keep calling her Nagisa. Has to know Himeki somehow. I know it's just a Muse thing, but I kept thinking he's related to the mom. The mom's his mom. You know what I mean? Her
Never
mom is his
that
mom.
He's been dead 30 years and
yeah,
was 18 at that point.
We don't know how old she is. She could just be a healthy looking like 50-year-old woman. We don't know that.
Oh, Manuel.
What?
Tenmaku is 48 at this point.
She could be a healthy 60-year-old woman.
Which would mean she gave birth at the age of 12.
Okay. Then there's some holes in my plot. Maybe that's his sister. I don't know.
Okay, so yes, we cut back. We see to the cut essentially as Hajime yells at
and they're done.
Calling for take, and it's good. Insert your football memes here. We see there's a few beat panels as we see the happy reactions of everyone as they realize they finally finished this movie, or at least principal photography, and the rain lets up just as suddenly as it began. So like the tears of sadness have given way to the sunniness of happiness, or of hope.
And then they bring it to the director.
Yeah, they bring it to the director and his AD. More than likely to show them the completed project, which leads us to our penultimate chapter, the night before submission.
This is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the director cuts it to pieces in the typical film student-y way, which is fair.
I had a brief moment where I was like, very brief moment where I was like, oh, he's gonna love it. He's gonna be like, I was wrong.
Yeah,
it's so much better that he didn't though.
Yeah, he lists off.
He doesn't like it at all. I'm sorry.
He does.
He lists off all the things wrong with it, but then he's like, it's a good thing you wrote a good script and you had a good actress.
Yeah, even though it's too late to reshoot, she's obviously just taking his notes because he knows that he can use this on other projects. This is a first creation. Anything that gets better than probably a D from a professional director is probably a good thing for a first timer.
Yeah.
Also,
I like to think this is the only DVD that they've made because they apparently don't know how to make copies in my headcanon. So if the director has just broken the DVD, then they've been screwed.
I mean, they still have the original copy, man.
Yeah, but they had to burn a new one. I don't know how long it takes to how big of a file this is. That's a Blu-ray. It'll take all night to render again.
So yes, in the parking lot, Yukio, the director, talks with Shinichi about what he will do if the movie is a winner at Appicon, the contest. As he puts it, the movie will still be a project, but at that point, it will also become a product. He asks Shinichi what his actual goal with making films is. Does he want to be a professional director? And it cuts away before we get an answer from him at that point. Then we move on to the day of Appicon screenings. The other members of Team Shinichi can't be there. I don't know if this was specifically like a COVID era thing or it's just only like 2 people get tickets, but they'll be watching online and cheering them on.
Oh yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because when they showed the final screening, I don't know if that's because nobody was seated yet, but there is hardly anyone in that theater in the screening room.
Yeah, something we forgot to mention that was mentioned earlier in this chapter. Himeki's mother is going to be one of the judges at Appicon, so that's obviously a conflict of interest she has to kind of navigate. I believe she kind of bows out of judging the shore, but it obviously might taint some of the other judges. We see them discussing that as well.
Yeah, they show the other judges, and I'm sorry, this is really out of left field, but the 2 girls who are like, there's an old man judge and there's like wacky director looking type who's not even looking at the like forward, and there's 2 women, and I'm like, who are these characters? They feel like they'd be references to something else. I just don't know, like probably other manga characters. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but they look too well designed to just be in one scene.
Yeah,
like
that's what I thought too. I thought like as there's some like famous Japanese movie reviewer I'm not getting. I thought the old judge was clearly Roger Ebert. But,
so I have a feeling all 3, or at least definitely the girl and the guy not looking at the camera, not looking at forward, those have to be references. But anyway,
we also get some more information about Appicon. There were apparently 283 entrances this year, mostly short and medium length films from college clubs. Only 16 of those make it to the final round, of which the shore managed to do.
Yeah, and then everyone's watching it online. The director's watching it online. The friends are watching it online. They are obviously in person. Shinichi and Himeki are. I like when they go to sit down. I'm not sure if they're just sweating because Himeki's sitting next to them, but the reaction by the other boys who were like in the row with them look funny. Like one dude's actually sweating and the boy on the far right's like, huh? That kind of face.
I mean, no one really expects even a low-grade film star to be what is essentially a student film contest.
Yeah. So they watch. So the chapter ends at them watching the first scene, like her crying in the water. Rosebud.
And so that brings us to our final chapter. The first movie continued. I don't remember if I mentioned it at the start of this, but chapter 1 was also called the first movie. So it's bringing things full circle.
So in the previous thing, they did mention that Tenmaku had never been credited in his movies when he was working with, we did mention that part, but it came up at some point that Shinichi felt kind of bad that he was always taking this credit. Like everyone's like, "Oh, you wrote the script." And he's always like, not really. Yeah, I guess, I wrote this script. And now when it's ending on the screen, everyone, it's clear that everyone's kind of liking it. The hush, I think they're trying to imply a quiet clap or a slow clap. I don't know. Maybe that's just me reading too much into it.
I think it's supposed to be kind of the thunderous applause that starts from like one person in the back just going.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's like the end of like an 80s like like sitcom. Not sitcom, but like what I'm trying to say, the
end of Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah. So the credits are coming up and showing all the actors, makeup, costume, the grip, and so on. We also see those directors again for one final scene. But so Tenmaku's all happy, like he's looking at it. They're talking about like, this is all you, buddy. This is all you. You did it, boy. You did it, Shinichi. I'm so proud of you. And then it's all like, but I'm the kind of person who stays for the credits. And they show and they credited Tenmaku as the writer,
which is so funny because nobody knows who he is.
Yes, and also how are they going to explain that? Like they never imply that this contest has multiple categories, but you have to think it does. Do they actually show that? I think they do show that it has.
Yes, they do have multiple categories because you see later. But I assume
exactly. I just found them.
They would either assume it was just a member who wasn't there that day, or that he's just using a pen name for writing scripts. Maybe he wants to separate those 2 possible careers for them. Because this time he does.
For the record, the script one. Yeah, the script one.
He reveals that he wants to go into filmmaking. He wants to go to film school and be a director.
And it pisses me off. There's no more. I'm not gonna lie. This chapter won me over again because I was kind of falling out of this manga for a bit. But the scene where it's like I decided I'm gonna become a filmmaker, and I want you to be there by my side. We're gonna make the best movies ever. And they agree that they're gonna be this unbeatable team, and that's not gonna happen. Okay, well actually, it gets worse. It gets much worse.
After this, we cut to the lobby. Himeki won Best Lead Actress, while The Shore seems to have won Best Script and a Judge's Special Award. Shinichi meets Himeki's mom. I think for the first time they've actually been face to face.
Yeah.
She initially seems angry, but it seems she's learned to trust her daughter's judgment and asked to be on more even terms with her daughter in discussing future projects. This is kind of the resolution to theirs that we're getting.
Yeah, basically she's like, hey, like I guess it's all right what you did, but next time, go through the agency and we'll set this up in the proper channels.
Mm-hmm. And then Shinichi starts another big speech about how he wants to be an even better director who's going to be worthy of her. And Himeki just doesn't have any. She's just like, look, I want to be in your next movie already. Just write it and cast me, okay?
Okay, I'm sorry, but like that poofy face she does also pissed me off too. There's so many, like, out of nowhere when they start doing the manga faces, so to speak. I'm like, okay, she never made that face before. That pisses me off. She's like, I can't obviously can't see what I'm doing, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, they all celebrate. They're very pointy awards. I imagine there's a plot where somebody gets stabbed with one of them.
Yeah, as Himeki's mother and driver, who apparently drove them there because they are seen entering at like the same time, look on fondly. I always suggest they take a picture. And as they set up, Tenmaku wonders if director Shirakawa is kind of seeing this from the great beyond and assuring him that together with Shinichi, they'll make some fantastic movies. I will admit this part brought me to tears in the reread, mostly because I was thinking of my own acts of creating media and how I kind of reflect on my relationship with my late mother. And I kind of wonder similar things all the time. Just before the picture is taken, it seems Himeki, however faintly, could also feel Tenmaku's presence. Yeah. And both he and Shinichi act surprised at what she says. So the manga ends on the picture frame of like this picture being taken, where now it's now
me off so much,
which is off because obviously Himeki is just wondering, what's that presence I feel? I thought I heard someone say something.
The Poochie scene, they Poochied the whole story. Honestly, if this just ended and that was the best summer ever, I would be fine. If they just left, or they didn't even say anything, just put Fiend, the end. I would love every second of this. But then it dead ass goes, oh, by the way, that was 10 years ago. Yeah, this crew, we filmed The Fang last week. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it says.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, in my head, and I know this is probably never going to happen. In my head, I'm like, man, this is actually a really good story. I know they're not going to do it, but at least when they're leaving it like this, part of me feels that one day in their later years, they'd be like, you know what? The creators, I mean, let's go back and finish Tenmaku Cinema. And they're going to go back and tell the story about them making The Fang. But no, forget that. We're going to just put it in like 5 freaking bubbles on the fucking picture. I'm mad. Maybe want to flip a table. I actually got really upset.
I don't know if there's going to be any chance of them picking up later. And even if they did, they can just continue on from there. All they've given themselves is like a 10-year time limit at this point.
Yeah, and also, this made me wonder, so wait, did this story, and I know this is probably not the case, this was 2034, or 2033, I guess, but I'm like, wait, did this story take place in 2013? Because don't do that.
I think judging by the model of iPhone and the fact that they reference a 2015 film, it does actually take place in 2023, so the narration is just from 2033 at this point.
But yeah, we don't have my stuff here. So much to say, Tenmaku didn't leave. Oh, because Tenmaku, that was the whole idea, that he was going to pass on once he made the Fang. Did he pass on after the Fang?
He's just like doomed to haunt the world forever.
Yeah. Oh, and I have it on all my notes. How did Tenmaku die? They never said that. I feel like the manga's named after him, and I feel like we lost this characterization halfway through. Even though he still was always in the background and did some things here and there, we stopped caring about him as a character, or at least the story stopped caring about him as a character.
I think Tenmaku is kind of the weakest part of the manga, unfortunately, because he's interesting. But at a certain point, they just kind of stopped giving him very much attention, and it really hurts like the quality overall.
Yeah, so you know what? Let's not beat around the bush. We already went a little over it. I didn't think we had this much to say about it, but I guess we did. I loved it. I still loved it. I hate the ending, but that's a lot of things. That's a lot of media. I feel like I've yet to read much manga that sticks to landing, but I still love it.
I don't know. I was like somewhat negative overall, but at the same time, like not entirely, and I still feel kind of positive. I like the ending. It has this very overly sentimental sort of vibe that I'm kind of sick of in stories, but at the same time, like I think it's very like, despite all the issues, it gets kind of like tightly wrapped up, and it's cute. It's a really cute story. It's kind of fun. I do love the premise. I wish it had been like, I don't know, done differently. I wish it hadn't been canceled, or either it hadn't been canceled, or I wish they had planned for 3 volumes from the start.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I guess neutral on it almost. Like, there are things that I really don't like about it. There are things I really do like about it. And it's just kind of it was nice.
I have slightly more long-winded things to say, but I want to hear JD's thoughts first.
Well, I picked this manga because I loved it. Like I said, I read it from when chapter 1 like first came out and was just kind of intrigued by the premise. And I am really sad that it got canceled after 21 chapters. I would like to see it go on for like 100, 200, kind of seeing where this would have gone. Like their next film projects would probably been a time skip or 2 until like they're in high school, then like they're in college, and then probably a professional shoot where we actually see the Fang being made and learn more about it. I wanted to learn the mysteries behind Tenmaku's death, his relationship with Shirakawa, and why all that never materialized. So I'm really sad.
How he's actually the mom's sister.
This was like, I don't remember where this fits in, but I have like 3 manga that kind of really piqued my interest and then got canceled really quickly in the last 5 years as I was reading Jump. So expect sometime in the future to read some more stuff out of Shonen Jump that got canceled really quickly. Fair warning.
Well,
Man,
well,
that's
but,
why
like-
I hate to read something that's ongoing.
Exactly. Some of my further thoughts. One of the things I loved about the story, and I've mentioned this in the past in previous UPZ, that's our like, you know, actual podcast, live podcast, what I'm looking for, a live podcast we do every week. I've mentioned this in the past whenever we talk about anime. One of my favorite anime of all time is one called Comic Party, because it reminded me of me and my old filmmaking buddies when we were young and had, you know, and that one's about making doujinshi. And mind you, Comic Party is based on a manga, which is based on a game, but the anime has a slightly different plot that focuses more on the doujinshi creation. I feel like Tenmaku Cinema felt like the movie version of that, which is funny enough is more accurate to like me and the homies doing movies back in the day. So it kind of brought back memories, made me feel like, God, I'm old, you know, like
Yeah,
when I was young,
it
and
made
had
me really
my dreams
miss
ahead of
being
me.
a film student. I had a lot of like
Yeah.
nostalgia looking at like, oh man, I miss doing that.
Exactly. So like, I'm glad I read this. Like, I would have never seen this out. I would never have come across this. There's no way I would have come across
Oh
it.
yeah, I wouldn't have picked it up, and I am glad we read it.
I will
Yeah.
say that, like, in my opinions, it would have made a much better drama. Like, I don't know if either of you are as familiar as I am with like live action television dramas in Japan. There's a whole genre of like teen summer dramas. Like, one of my favorites is Tayona Uda. I mentioned that in my 2000s panel. Really touching, really like heartfelt, sad. I like freaking tearjerker. This would have been perfect in that kind of setting, especially because it had such a short like run. Unintentional, I'm sure, but you know, this would have been a perfect like not melancholic. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, you know, heartfelt summer story. I don't think it worked well in this format. More so the Shonen Jump format, but I enjoyed it though.
I agree with you, man. I do like my series that kind of take a look behind the curtain, show us how like certain like pieces of media are made. Like I talked about Bakuman, which was showing us how manga and Jump kind of gets made and through the lives of mangaka, or like New Game, which is much more comedic slice of life look at the development of video games that could probably go on for how it kind of matches up with reality, but then is clearly going in its own comedic bent. See also Mythic Quest and some other things. Oh, and the current running manga Hakotaku about making video games in high school. Maybe that'll show up when it gets canceled in like 20 chapters. I'm not praying death on that manga. I really like it. I want that one to run for 100 chapters. Please keep that running, Jump editors.
Yeah. So if you do want to check out this manga for yourself, it is on the Shonen Jump app, and you can check it out there. I think so far everything we've read so far, not on purpose, has been on the Shonen Jump app, right?
No, Viz is the one for Uzumaki, and I don't know if
never mind.
on anything.
Never
I will
mind.
say I do happen to know that the next one is also on the Viz app.
Okay, thank you. So I know where to get it. I think that kind of wraps up. Manuel, what are we doing next time?
Oh, next month we'll be revisiting one of my favorite manga titles when I was younger. A manga which I actually always called Real About High School, which I think is its title actually. But whenever I look it up, they call it Samurai Girl Real About High School.
Yeah, that's what I've seen.
Yeah. For those who don't know, it was one of Tokyo Pop's in that era, one of their biggest titles, to the point when they tried to make a live action show about it. I remember hearing all those news at some very early anime expos I went to. Obviously, it never went anywhere, but they had a lot of love behind it. It's a very stereotypical like shonen type manga though, very like fight. You know, but then again, I feel like, you know, need a break from this stuff. Let's feel something like light and, you know, very easy to read, in my opinion. So yeah, that's gonna be the next month.
Oh yeah, especially
December,
after the next one.
it's Christmas. Oh, we're gonna go really heavy again. Yeah, I have some other ideas. You thought I was gonna say Comic Party, and the only reason I haven't said that is because I want to confirm because there's 2 Comic Party mangas, and I can't remember which one is the one that's actually based on the part that I like. But look forward to that in the future. I don't think the next one. I'll probably wait till like this time next year or something, you know, to do that. But yeah, we'll see.
I've been looking at Real About High School. It looks pretty fun. Looks like a retro, like it kind of gives me Yu Yu Hakusho vibes.
Yeah, it very much is. I'm not sure if it ran in Shonen Jump, but it very much has that Shonen Jump, you know, style vibe to it.
It ran in Dragon magazine.
There you go. Oh, okay. It definitely has a dragon.
Oh, no,
vibe.
wait.
Okay. If it ran in Dragon, it definitely does, because that's where Ikitosen ran, right? But yeah.
I think actually the light novel ran in Dragon.
Oh,
Wow.
but anyway, yeah, it's good. I think it's good. But then again, who knows? Maybe I'll revisit it. I'll be like, man, what was I reading 20 years ago? But yeah.
Yeah, that's it for this episode of Reading the Wrong Way. Thank you for joining us. As always, I'm JD.
I am Manuel.
I'm B.
And we'll see you next chapter. Cut!
This program has been brought to you in part by our patron Ed. If you would like to support our channel and keep our website ad-free, consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/A2J Connections.